Durant has requested a trade. Now, I mean, obviously, most people are going to think that the distractions of Kyrie Irving is the cause of this, and it precipitates it. And I would think it would be. He's probably fed up with Kyrie now that Kyrie has returned and says he's going to be there for next year. I guess this indicates a fission between the two of them, who obviously were brought together, led by Kyrie, going to Brooklyn in the first place. Harden wanted out last year. Now, Harden got his wish, but he didn't produce in Philly. And now Durant. Be very interesting to see what the Nets do with this scenario. They try to talk him out of it. Do they put him on the open market? I mean, they would bring back a whole plethora of stars and draft picks and everything else. But the problem is, you can bring back anybody you want. There's only one Kevin Durant. He's one of the top 10, 12 players in the history of the National Basketball Association, who is still, relatively in the prime of his career. So if you go out there and, you offer him up, there will be some buyers, but then you got cap issues and figuring out how to get the guy into the cap and what he makes, which is probably $35-40 million a year. And then, in fact, you have to take one of their players back. It's a mess. So, I mean, it'd be very interesting to see how this develops here. And I'm not sure if the Nets can talk him out of it. Durant is a guy that usually follows the flow and doesn't look to make too many headlines. I mean, he told us in the last week or so that he wants to stay out of the Kyrie discussions. Now, I don't know if this has to do with the fact that he's fed up with Kyrie and enough of his shenanigans, and he can't promise that Kyrie is going to be in Brooklyn for the long term, or how many games that Kyrie is going to decide to play next year for Brooklyn. That could be it. And so he says, let me get ahead of it and get out now, because if Kyrie shows up in the fall and then bails on us after 41 games, then what? Who knows? But I think what it tells you is that the net play here in the last year and a half, 2 years, well, it's been longer than that. Make the trade or bring in Kyrie, have Kyrie bring in Durant, do everything that Kyrie asks, which includes DeAndre Jordan, pay him a fortune, fire Atkinson because Kyrie didn't want to play with him or play for him, bring Nash in, who had to be approved by the two of them. Then, of course, Harden was available, so make a trade for him and give up lots of young players, including Jared Allen, Dinwiddie, there were other, Levert and everything else, to bring him in. So you bring the Harden in. Durant gets hurt, COVID, the whole bit, hurts himself in regular season play. Couldn't play that first year because of the Achilles. Then you bring, obviously, Kyrie, who is in and out of the lineup constantly because he can't stay undistracted and, decides when he wants to play, how he wants to play, who he wants to play for, where he wants to play, doesn't get vaccinated, which kind of throws the team in chaos. Injuries to Harden. He loses it quickly at 33, 34 years of age. Harden says, I've had enough. They trade him. And then they get Ben Simmons in, who never plays. Then he has an injury. And then, he had an injury when he brought him in here. Then he has surgery. So he's out. They get swept by the Celtics. Kyrie, whether he went out there and discussed sign and trade with the Mavericks or the Lakers, whoever that might be, maybe that aggravated Durant because he's got to answer all these questions, because obviously Durant, is the most important player the Nets have. And, are you okay with Kyrie doing this? Do you want Kyrie back? Can you talk to Kyrie? Can you have him back and play 70 games? What is your input with his mind? So that's an issue. And I guess, Durant maybe just got fed up with it in the last, week or so. And, this is somebody who doesn't normally, I know that he bailed out of the Oklahoma City. He went to Golden State, took a lot of abuse for that, but he just didn't want to play with Westbrook anymore. He took the easy way out, playing with a team that had won 73 ball games in the Warriors, but then he left Golden State, I think maybe because he felt he had taken so much abuse for taking the easy way out after 2 championships and the torn Achilles. He follows Irving's lead, which is never a good idea, ends up in Brooklyn, and then I just chronicled the rest of the story for you. So from that standpoint, he wants to be traded. Be very interesting to see what the Nets do. Now, remember about the Nets. They are the Nets are a much bigger story out of Brooklyn than they are in Brooklyn. That's the best way to explain it. The Nets are not a big deal in the city of New York. People think they are who live other places. They are not. They don't do well with attendance. Their ratings don't indicate that they do well locally on television. I mean, they're covered. The newspapers cover them, and they got Durant and Irving on the team. Of course, they're going to cover them. But as far as the fandom is concerned, the blue-collar NBA fan, the guy who's going to trek from, Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island, who's going to go to a couple of basketball games here and follow a particular team. And despite the fact they've been awful and everybody hates Dolan and Leon Rose isn't exactly a day at the beach either, and Phil Jackson was a disaster, most of the fans in the tri-state will follow Knicks instead of following Nets. And this is despite having two superstars on the team. My point is it would serve Brooklyn right, because they have catered to the big stars since the two of them got here. They fired coaches. They allowed players to play without vaccinations. I mean, they really have, enabled, more so Irving, but they have enabled, and Durant has basically followed like a puppy dog what Irving wants, and they have followed that for the last 3 years, and essentially it's gotten them nothing. It got them a playoff round win against the 76ers. That's what it got them, a 5-game win against Philly, since Atkinson has been fired. That's it. This year they got swept, and then last year they lost Game 7 to Milwaukee in the second round before Milwaukee beat Atlanta. So from that standpoint, what exactly did all this get them? I mean, it got them zero.